Well, Amy and I are here today. This is Amy Sousa, and she is a content creator, a radical feminist, and affiliated with the Women's Human Rights Campaign. And I believe also helping to organize the march, the Women's March in Washington, which, depending on when you're watching this, may be coming up or may be over. But I'm really excited to talk to you. I have seen some of the interviews that you've done, and I feel like you have some really important perspectives on what's happening. So I was wondering if you would mind if we start out talking about something that I just saw on Facebook today, which is
Yeah.
new guidelines that were issued somewhere in England about how medical care staff are supposed to refer to women's body parts. Apparently, these are no longer breasts. This is my chest.
Yeah.
Women apparently are able to lactate with chests now. They don't need breasts anymore. And I was just wondering if you would mind if we talk about that a little bit because it's really bothering me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on my Facebook today. I saw that on my Twitter feed today. Yeah, it's coming down from the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK. And yeah, they are completely removing the word woman and women's bodies, breasts, from women's issues. And this is not the first. I mean, this is one instance among many that have been recurring and recurring, and it is heartening to see that many women have taken to the responses. I'm not sure if you looked at least in the responses that I was seeing, it seemed like almost everyone who was responding was a woman who
Right.
was saying, Absolutely not." But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Chests don't lactate. I mean,
no,
breasts lactate.
no,
That's the definition.
no.
I mean, there's the other thing that concerned me is it's no longer mother, it's parent. And
Yeah.
we saw that in the US, this language was kind of used in the new rules for Congress that was recently
Yeah.
passed, where we're not allowed to talk about mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. It's all been de-sexed, I guess is the word.
Yeah. It's very upsetting because this is an essential biological relationship. The terms mother and father are, of course we use them as human beings, but in all of science, this is how we track lineage. We track lineage, animal lineage as well as human lineage through two parents, a mother and a father. And those roles are unique and distinctive. One parent gestated the young, that's the mother. That's a unique biological relationship, to gestate your young. And it's another unique biological relationship to be the sperm donor, to be the one who
Makes the
is
small gamete. Yeah.
yeah, makes the small gamete.
Yeah.
um so it's quite disheartening to see that being removed from language because it is an essential biological relationship. And of course for women it has even more impact because only women bear risk in pregnancy. Only women bear risk in getting pregnant, giving birth, post-birth complications. And this applies not just to their physical health, but this applies to opportunities. Women still sometimes lack opportunities because of our potential to get pregnant.
Mhm.
And we also lack opportunities because we have kids. Women have been known to not be hired because they want to get pregnant or because they have children. So it has political bearing on our situation in life. And it has a really detrimental impact to women when we erase that language, and when we erase mothers from language about motherhood, or the word woman from issues of women's health and women's concerns.
Right. And it's really troubling to me because I think about little girls specifically, and it's hard enough to sort of learn about these issues, menstruating as your breasts grow, all these things that are very um, exclusive to women, now being disassociated from our biology, and how confusing that must be. I actually just got an email recently from a woman whose next door neighbor actually said that she will get a restraining order if her neighbor talks to her again, because her neighbor's been concerned about her son who is identifying as a woman. And in the email, the woman whose son is identifying as a woman said that it's really hard when her son is having his periods. And I keep seeing this appropriation of exclusively female bodily functions. And a lot of these men who claim to be women are trying to mimic even these bodily functions, and they can't. These are exclusive to women's bodies. They are what really defines us as women, as females, as biologically different from males.
Yeah. A lot of the language that we've seen from the progressive left, of which I formerly would have called myself, but I'm continually being alienated from them. But a lot of the language that we've seen come down along with this ideology, is that they are choosing to eliminate words like woman or mother, because it is more inclusive.
Mhm.
However, to me, it is entirely detrimental to disinclude women from women's issues.
Yeah.
Women deserve to be included in women's issues. Women deserve to be included in women's rights. And, you know, men and boys don't have periods. They're not going to have menopause. They're not going to have endometriosis. They're not going to suffer a post-birth prolapsed uterus. They're not going to have vaginal tearing. They're not going to, they don't have any of that risk in reproduction. I mean, I think that in the US alone, the leading cause of death for girls ages 15 to 19 is pregnancy and pregnancy related complications. I mean,
Yeah.
women bear an incredible risk in pregnancy and birth. Women of color even more so. This is a political concern for women, and to basically disinclude women from our own issues really erases our ability to fight for those rights and those issues. And yeah, it is really galling when men appropriate those uniquely female experiences and try to claim them as their own. I feel for boys who are having dysphoria or dissociation from their male bodies. However, feeling a dissociation from your male body, that's actually a uniquely male experience.
Right. Yeah.
That experience of feeling discomfort or dissociation from your male body is unrelated to existing in a female body. There's no relationship between those two experiences. And men and boys have no access to those feelings. The only feelings associated with a woman or a girl's body are not emotions. They're physical sensations.
Yeah, they're
And those
physiological. Yeah.
yeah, those sensations can only be experienced if you have the apparatus to experience them. And these boys do not have that apparatus. And it is it's I find it very galling
Yeah.
that they appropriate this language from women, because they have no idea of what those experiences are like. They do not have a first period discomforting experience, or I got my period at the swimming pool, upsetness. They don't have that experience.
Yeah, and
And
it's interesting because they can create what, sort of facsimiles of breasts and facsimiles of vaginas. But a facsimile of a breast doesn't lactate, and a facsimile of a vagina doesn't change vaginal mucus throughout the month in accordance with the hormones, which is something women deal with. And maybe we don't want to talk about it, but it's something that we deal with. There are these like very specific things related to our female bodies that cannot be replicated. You can create a hole in a male in in the place that it would sort of be located in a woman, but that is simply a wound. It's not a vagina.
Yeah.
It does not function
Yeah.
like a vagina. It will never give birth. It will never experience the kinds of sensations that women have as a result of being in our bodies.
Yeah. It I find it sad that, we sort of just got to this time where inherited the book Our Bodies Ourselves, and I feel like, we just went through that 60s and 70s time of women's consciousness raising and women's health, and women looking at their vaginas and looking at their cervix and naming their body accurately. We've just passed a time in history where we referred to it as down there, or or
Or
used
wee wee.
or wee wee, like little euphemisms. We finally were giving women accurate words to talk about their bodies, to talk about their cervix and their clitoris and their labia and their vulva and their vagina. And now basically we're backpedaling, and I do find it upsetting that men who choose to have their penis inverted are calling that a vagina, because again, it's unrelated to anything having to do with a vagina. A vagina is a incredibly dynamic organ connected to the rest of women's reproductive health. It expands, it contracts, it's self-cleaning, it's self-lubricating, it fights off infection. I mean, it's
And it's
it's
also a point of vulnerability that girls have
yeah.
grown up with, and some of them have been violated as a result of at a very early age, which is something that a grown man will never experience.
Oh,
And it's not that I'd want them to; it's a horrible experience to be vulnerable like that. But like you said,
yeah,
these are all things distinctly related to having a
yeah,
female body. And it's so interesting when you talk about sort of liberal language of inclusivity. And the irony is that as they are trying to be inclusive, they're actually eliminating diversity by
yeah,
trying to pretend like anybody can be a woman. Well, that's really kind of negating the experience of being a woman and eliminating that diversity. So it's sort of this conflict between, well, if we're going to be tolerant of everything, then we're really not diverse. We're just
yeah.
saying that everybody's the same or can be the same or has access to the same experiences.
Yeah. You know, um, to me, this also has a lot to do with boundaries,
Mm.
and saying that we're allowed to have boundaries around our bodies and around our experiences that have to do with our bodies. And I tend to remind people that everything in nature is bounded. Everything has a boundary, down to the nucleus or electron of the atom has a boundary. And part of this is about women and girls' physical boundaries and our right to have boundaries around our bodies, and the right to say we want female only spaces where males are not meant to be because of our bodies and what our bodies go through. And I think that this idea that inclusivity is the ultimate value, the I think it forgets a lot of values, because boundaries are also a value.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be teaching kids that having boundaries around their body is a value,
It's
that they are
really
allowed to protect.
important. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, it's so important. And
yeah,
I think of all the things, that's one of the things that just breaks my heart the most is this not only do we not have boundaries, but we're not even allowed to use language that's accurate. So it's like we're
yeah,
breaking down boundaries. We're telling kids and adults that their boundaries are inappropriate somehow or bigoted somehow or
yeah,
hateful. somehow.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've been called a Nazi because I want my boundaries respected. And children are getting this message, and then they're being told that if they don't use the language that other people want them to use, that they're being hateful. So it's this weird, like certain people get to have these it's almost like their boundaries are more important. You know,
Yeah.
these men who are uncomfortable going into a men's bathroom because of how they dress and how they choose to present, somehow their boundary is more important than ours, and we're supposed
Yeah.
to somehow let our boundaries be violated so that these men, um, their boundaries don't have to be, or so that they don't have to experience an uncomfortableness or an unpleasantness based on on the way they choose to present. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the irony, is it's all based on choices that they're making. So we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves and our rights and protections for the feelings and proclivities of men.
Yeah, the language used in some of the anti-bullying guidance that's gone into schools in various states and also abroad, language that has taken its guidance from, for example, the Mermaids organization. Some of that language actually says things like embrace your discomfort. And if you see someone in a bathroom who you think doesn't belong, to trust their experience above your own. And this is, it's the exact opposite guidance that we want to actually be giving to kids. We want kids not to embrace their discomfort, but to stand up for their boundaries, and to trust their intuition and to trust their senses. They're part of the way that again this has been rolled out in the culture. Of course, Jennifer Bialik in the 11th Hour blog has done a lot of research looking at exactly how this has strategically been rolled out. And a lot of it is a very glossy advertising campaign with catchy slogans about what is going on. But ultimately we need to be teaching our kids to trust their intuition and their senses. And the fact is, humans have evolutionarily developed to have incredibly keen millisecond instincts on sex and secondary sex characteristics. This is a honed instinct really for all mammals, and all sexually
Right.
dimorphic species,
There's
not
a
just
reason that we
mammals.
have that recognition and why that's important. And as you said, animals
Yeah.
have it too. It's something, it's about our safety. And as you were talking about the bathrooms and telling kids, like especially girls, telling them, to respect the person in their bathroom and not to, to trust their feelings over their own. I just had this image of a man like going into a bathroom and this girl being told, no, it's okay. We got to trust his feelings, and then going into the stall with the girl, and the girl being told, no, it's okay, trust his feelings, and then the guy sexually assaulting her, and the girl being told, no, it's okay, trust his feelings. you know at what point does a girl get to have boundaries if she doesn't even get to have them around same-sex spaces?
Yeah. 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 I mean, and we know that male violence is an issue.
Mhm.
And we know that, for millennia, men have been using a lot of different tactics to get into women's spaces. I think I've said this in other interviews, but this ideology acts as if there are no bad agents or no bad actors. And the fact of the matter is, self ID is a self assessed claim. There are no biological markers for it. Again, it's just men and boys who choose to dress differently or take cross sex hormones or have cosmetic surgeries. Um, and this is not to say that I don't have empathy for men and boys who are vulnerable in male spaces, but this is an issue that needs to be taken up with men. If,
Yeah.
there are not just men who claim different identities who may or may not be unsafe in men's spaces, but gay men are often unsafe in men's spaces, small men, young men, pretty men, weak men, disabled men. And if some men are vulnerable in men's spaces, again, it's an issue that we need to address with men. But
Right.
women and girls should not be made to be human shields for vulnerable men.
Right.
Why is the priority given to men who feel unsafe with men? Why are we not allowed to feel unsafe with men
Right.
when we women and girls suffer the most sexualized violence from men?
Right.
We face far more sexualized violence from men than men do from other men. So we have a huge justification to take male violence seriously. But even without that justification, simply having privacy
Mhm.
around our bodies and
Right.
around issues that our bodies have, nursing and menstruation and other issues that we may be having, we deserve to be able to have those processes happen among females only.
Well, and it is ironic that I feel like saying, these are men who are saying they're uncomfortable being in men's rooms and being around men. And I'm like, well, yeah. So if you're uncomfortable being around men, think how we feel. And I like what you're saying as far as I feel like we really need to be rallying around men and saying, if you are a feminine man, if you are a small man, if you are a man who is vulnerable for whatever reason in the men's bathrooms, we are here to support you and fight for you. And if you are a man who wants to wear makeup and dresses and go into the men's room, I'm going to back you up on that. As long as you're going into the men's bathroom, I'm going to, this is where I feel like the transgender movement is really kind of shooting itself in the foot, because what it should be doing is fighting for men to be non-gender conforming. That would
Yeah.
be ideal.
Yeah.
Instead, they're trying, and that's where I feel like it's predatory. This isn't about men who want to wear dresses and makeup. This is about men who are trying to penetrate spaces that are sex separated.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, feminists, I mean, I at least call myself a feminist, but feminists have long been applauding men who are gender nonconforming. I mean, we want to see these gender stereotypes be broken down. But what is actually happening when a man performs femininity, and instead of breaking what it means to be masculine and what it means to be a man, instead of saying this too is what a man can be and what a man looks like, those men are actually narrowing what it means to be a woman. So by saying that this behavior makes them into a literal woman, this actually narrows existing stereotypes rather than breaking existing stereotypes. And I know that there are, again, hundreds of different gendered identities that exist. I think even 33 are officially recognized in New York City. But we don't need more chains. We don't need more narrow boxes. It's not like, oh, the man box and the woman box are too narrow, so we need lots of boxes. We need to smash these boxes all together. And myself, like many feminists, I call myself a gender abolitionist. These gender boxes need to be entirely smashed. People should be, we need to be teaching kids, not that, if you are a boy and you like long hair and dolls, instead of teaching that boy, maybe I'm a girl, we just need to say, yeah,
Yeah.
and boys can be like that,
Yeah.
and girls can like sports and like to climb trees and want short hair. We can expand, and tell kids there's no right or wrong way to exist in your body. You can exist in your body with any kind of expression, any kind of behavior, any kind of emotions or passions, that feel authentic and spontaneous to you. And you don't have to physically alter or medicalize your body in order to do it. And I think, we're doing kids a real disservice in this. One, because we're denying them accurate language to talk about their own body. When we deny kids accurate language to talk about their bodies, we are denying kids the ability to be their own health advocates.
Yeah.
We are giving them disinformation about the most basic part of life, which is where babies come from. I've seen I've seen posts where, teens are literally confused about this, because perhaps both of these, I saw one about these two teens who didn't know they could get pregnant because they both, quote, identified as lesbians, but it was a heterosexual couple. It was a boy and a girl.
Mm.
And they made a baby because boys and girls make babies. Our sex, our immutable physical sex is part of our humanity, the way, it is for every mammal. That part of our biology is, there is no other way to arrive on the planet. There's still only one way to get here, and it's from a man and a woman
Yeah.
having sexual intercourse.
It's so interesting that you say that because I just saw an interview Glenner did with Mr. Menno, and he was talking about the fact that you can feel whatever you want, but your body's physiological processes are still going to be what they are based on your genetics, your DNA, your biology. So no, and
Yeah.
like you said, no matter how much I think I'm something else, my hair still grows. I'm still digesting food. If I'm a woman, I'm having my monthly cycle. These things are happening regardless of what's happening in my head. And so it really makes no sense to try to disassociate those, to try and suggest that, it is possible to have, somehow your brain be fundamentally different from your body, because reality happens, that in that couple you're
Yeah.
talking about. I mean, the fact that this ideology has gotten to the point where people, this poor couple didn't realize that the woman could get pregnant. That's so sad. It's this dissociation. And yet, as Mr. Menno said, our physiology betrays this ideology every day.
Yeah. Well, and when I think of it, like when I really think of it, it is highly bizarre that we have put any special identity status on one certain set of internal organs. Like we don't have other internal organ identity, because basically what makes us male or female are just a set of internal organs, but we don't somehow recognize gallbladder identity, or a special kidney identity, or a liver identity. It's very bizarre to put a special identity status onto just what is a set of body organs that help us to function in the world. It's one part of our humanity, just like these other organs are part of our full humanity. And like you said, however I identify, it doesn't change the functioning of those organs.
Right.
I can love to be underwater, and I can love going underwater and swimming, but however I identify, I still need oxygen to breathe. I still breathe with lungs that require taking in air. I do not breathe with gills, no matter
No
how
matter how
much.
much you identify as a fish. I mean,
My body does not care how I identify. My body continues to function like a human, like an adult human female, no matter how I identify. And the fact of the matter is, we are always situated in our bodies. We are never, no matter how much we may mentally feel a dissociation, we're constantly situated in our bodies, and our bodies we're so intimately connected to our bodies that it's almost invisible. It's almost invisible, but our bodies are constantly informing us. I'm even, if you think of you and I just sitting where we are, I'm shifting slightly as I move to maintain my comfortability. I think already a couple times I've swiped my hair out of my face, because our body is constantly asking us to engage with it. Our body is constantly asserting its presence and asking us to respond, and we are in constant response to our bodies all the time, and that is part of this setup of kids who are feeling discomfort or dysphoria or dissociation or whatever we want to call it. Unfortunately, it is a giant lie that the big pharma and medical institutions are selling them, that they can change their sex, when in fact their body is constantly trying to assert itself as the sex that they are. Their body is a constant reminder to them that they are born male or born female. This is not simply an assignment, it's an observation, and they can observe it for themselves. And, I think we set up kids for an incredible feeling of cognitive dissonance and imposter complex, because the constant upkeep, if you want to maintain the pretense that you are the opposite sex, you must stay on these hormones for life. You must constantly groom and modify yourself to maintain that pretense. And that can only exacerbate those feelings of dissociation and discomfort, because this is a ritual that you have to repeat. It's not a one time situation, one and done and you're changed. You have to upkeep this change, or your body will revert to its natural ways.
Right. And it's again promoting a very unhealthy mental outlook, but it's also damaging a body that's otherwise healthy. To me,
Yeah.
that is just like, I have some medical conditions that have really been a struggle for me. And the idea that somebody would actually intentionally do things to harm their bodies, and often for life, these are going to be things they're going to have to struggle with for life. It breaks my heart. And it's this sense of like, you have no idea how blessed you are. And I know that's kind of a term people might bristle against, but that you have a body that is healthy and functional, and here you are doing things to make it less functional. That's just so
Yeah.
sad, especially when we have limited
Yeah.
resources. We have
Yeah.
I know someone who just recently had eye surgery because he had cataracts. And if he hadn't had the eye surgery, he would go blind. His insurance didn't cover it. The same insurance company would pay for a female to get a fake penis. I mean, that's where like this ideology just it drives me crazy, as far as, what it causes people to do to their own bodies, and the use of resources that are limited, that should, in my view, be going to, actual medical care, actual, we have people who are suffering and starving and really
Yeah.
in need, and we're going to use resources to on puberty blockers to induce a developmental delay on children. Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that that's really true. It's a sad waste of medical time and attention and resources for people who are perfectly healthy. Perhaps some are experiencing a mental issue and should absolutely have help for that. But yeah, there's there's no reason that kids need their bodies modified in order to express themselves authentically.
Yeah.
And I do worry about sterility. I worry about lessened IQ, lessened bone density, greater risk of heart attack and heart disease, and just a multitude of physical issues that these kids will have, multiple surgeries, corrective surgeries, since they often go wrong. You know, there's you know, drugs to make these surgeries take. I mean, there's a whole host and litany of drugs. And you know, that's why I think Jennifer Bialik is so insistent on really targeting big pharma and the money behind the ad campaigns and behind the slogans and behind you know, the lobbies that are putting this curriculum in schools. Because you know, of course, there's money to be made. You know, there's lots of money to be made, and there is a lot of money to be made in ultimately creating a class of lifelong medical patients.
Isn't
You
that
know,
just
these.
horrible, though? I mean, that people are willing to make money off of damaging children's healthy bodies. Like, people should be up in arms.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, as I said, it has been successful because it's coming under this progressive idea of inclusivity. And I do think that kids who are nonconforming should absolutely be embraced, but they should be embraced and encouraged to be their authentic selves in their healthy bodies. I think that if progressives gave it a bit more thought, they could see that, you know, we're damaging kids in a lot of ways. And you know, ultimately puberty blockers, and it's puberty is a natural, necessary process, and we're really keeping kids from developing their whole humanity fully. You know, we're keeping them from their full brain develop, from their full growth development. You know, we're keeping them from sexual function, full sexual function. You know, their sexual organs do not fully develop, and they are not able to access the full range of sexual feelings. And you know, that itself is another tragedy amongst this, you know. And I feel for these kids who are being sold this, and they think that it is the only way to be comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
This affirmation only model that we see being put out by the psychiatric community and the medical community, uh, it's very dangerous, and we're doing kids a lot of harm. And we've already seen cases, like Kira Bell's case in the UK, and we hear about it from detransitioners, you know, that this is not the only way. Jamie Shoup from Oregon, who was the first man to first he claimed trans status, and then he was the first recognized non-binary person, and now he's gone back to being a man. And he talks about all these things. He talks about his own dissociation. He talks about the imposter complex. He talks about the cognitive dissonance that he was grappling with. And he talks about the pack of lies that he was sold, that he thought would heal him, that in fact just exacerbated those symptoms for him.
It's so sad. And I talk to detransitioners every day, and it's the same thing, that there are these underlying issues that were just completely overlooked. So as we're wrapping up here, I'm thinking, if somebody's watching this and maybe they're new to this, or maybe they've been in it for a while and they're just feeling like, what do we do? Um, Tell us what you're doing. I want to
Great. Oh,
hear.
good. Great. Okay. So, myself and a number of other women are doing a picket on Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
Myself, Kara Dansky, Courtney Piper, and Samantha Berg have organized. We have at least 20 other women who are organizing with us, and we have hundreds more who are coming. We are going to be picketing Biden's executive order. We're going to be doing this picket on March 8th, 2021 in Washington, D.C. An executive order came down from Biden that is mandating federal agencies to change their policies, and it's adopting the language of gender identity in place of the language of sex. So it is affecting all sex-based rights and it's affecting the sex-based rights of women. It's affecting our ability to name ourselves as a sex. It's affecting women's single-sex provisions and spaces. So sports, locker rooms, changing rooms, prisons, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, and also affecting our ability to ask for sex-specific healthcare providers. So if I want a woman, we wouldn't be able to ask for a woman. Or we could ask for a woman, but it could be a
Right.
man who is pretending or identifying as a quote woman. So because Biden's EO changes that language, we're protesting. So we want to say to Biden, and we want to say publicly, also to raise awareness, no, women do not consent to this. We don't consent to having language around our sex change to include males. And we also think it is important for women and girls to have safety and fairness in their single sex spaces and sports. In places like spaces and sports, bodies matter, sex matters, and having spaces that are segregated by sex are for the safety and privacy of all. Boys also deserve
Yeah.
private spaces for their own sex, and sports for their own sex.
Yeah, I've actually
Um,
heard of a number of boys who are extremely uncomfortable that girls are being allowed in their locker rooms. It's
yeah,
very uncomfortable. So,
yeah,
um, and it just sometimes I hear this discussion, and it blows my mind that we're even having it.
I know.
If we can't even agree on something as fundamental as biological, male and females existing, then why do we have age segregation?
I
Why do
know.
we have any kind of like biological identification at all? I mean, I could say, no, my eyes aren't hazel, they're actually purple. I mean, it gets so absurd when you think about this is all about somebody denying basic biology. So I'm glad that you're making this effort.
Yeah,
And there are people who aren't going to be able to come to Washington because of
yeah.
COVID. Do you have any recommendations for them?
Absolutely. So go to our website, womenpicketdc.org, and you can, one, be a delegate. Some people are choosing to have events in their home cities. And to be clear, we are taking every COVID precaution at the event and doing everything we can to ensure a safe event. We do have permits. We're talking to local authorities. So we are doing all that we can. But yes, women can do things in their own town. They can help by promoting our event and amplifying our voices. And finally, they can donate. So if you can't be there, you can also go to the website again, womenpicketdc.org, and there's a place where you can donate and give back that way. It helps us create materials, do publicity, have speakers at the event. It offsets a little bit of our costs in getting materials there. So anything that anyone can give is very much appreciated. And this is one strategy among many strategies that are happening. We are supported by a number of women and other organizations. We're supported by Stand Up International, International and Women's Liberation News and Partners for Ethical Care and FIST and Can I Get a Witness? Gosh, so many great organizations. Uh, I'm missing some. Free Birth Society, Women Humans Rights Campaign USA, Keep Prisons Single Sex, Save Women's Sports, Prostitution Research and Education, Free Birth Society, and Meetup Radical Feminist Activists. So we have a lot of orgs that are partnering with us, and you can also see those organizations on our website. And they also are always looking for more support. So if one of those organizations also connects with you, feel free to lend your support to them as well, because as I said, this is just one strategy and there are multiple strategies to address this that are happening right now. So there's really many ways to be involved.
Well, and I feel like as soon as it becomes safe to congregate and travel again, where people feel more comfortable with that, I feel like there's really going to be an upsurge in events because,
Yeah.
there are a fair number of people who are, unable or concerned about the travel, and I feel like I know that there are some events that are being planned for the summer, and I feel like there really is going to be an uprising
Yeah.
as more and more women realize the implications of this, that their daughters might not get a sports scholarship because a boy won a competition against them, as
Yeah.
girls are sacrificed being molested and such. So we're basically sacrificing these children to predators. I
Yeah.
think it's not just women that are going to be standing up against it. It's going to be fathers and brothers
Yeah.
and grandfathers who are just going to say, no, our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, they deserve these sex protected spaces. Their rights and protections are more important than the feelings of people who are having these disconnect with their bodies or who are being
Yeah.
predators. So I'm
Yeah.
really appreciative of your efforts. I'm super excited to see how these go. I wish I could be there. I
Yay.
actually, I actually am hoping that somebody will dial me up on Zoom during some of the chants so I can join in from my home.
Yeah, we have people who will be documenting the event, and I hope that we'll have people live streaming the event as well, so that everyone can be involved. And yeah, we're looking forward to a peaceful but impassioned event.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there is a moment for, for being gentle. There's a moment for rage. We are, our boundaries are being completely violated.
Yeah,
And it's okay to be angry about this. And it's
yeah,
okay to stand up and say no. And it's so ironic that this is all coming on the heels of the Me Too movement, where apparently we were told it was okay to say no, but now we're being told, well, actually, we didn't really mean it. so,
yeah.
so it's time to reclaim those boundaries. And I'm really appreciative of the work you're doing.
Yay! Thank you, Erin. Same. So I love your work also.